Welcome in to the DNVR Rapids Post Show presented by Vaca TV. I'm your host, Mitchell Carroll, and it's a loser's lounge. It is the loserest of lounges. It is a tough one, but in spite of that, I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and all around fantastic gentleman, Joseph Samelson.
Thanks again for having me, Mitch. 13th Road Losers Lounge of the year in all competitions. I'm assuming you guys did one for every game.
Tight.
Excited to talk about it with you. A lot of interesting things to cover.
I think
there's
a ton. Yeah, you're right.
But it's basically, like functionally, like this is
the
it.
Season's
like
over.
This.
Yeah.
Everybody said going into this final 5-game stretch. Frazier said it. Beta Shore said it. Danny said it Wednesday. Fleming and Balboa said it. They needed to take 15 from their final 15, and they didn't.
Yeah.
As of tonight, their chances of making the playoffs are less than 1%.
That's fun.
It would require basically the LA Galaxy has to lose out now. A bunch of other teams also have to lose out.
Salt Lake.
It's only a matter of time, and the reason why the Rapids haven't officially been eliminated yet is because they play in a league where half the teams in their conference make the playoffs, and that just means that they are going to be technically mathematically breathing for another week. Actually, I guess it's going to be 2 weeks until the next game, but
stupid international break. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding?
Hey, and that's like the bright side is that we now get to watch Sammy Vines.
That's right.
With the U.S. national team.
Yeah,
for
maybe
2 early kickoffs.
15 minutes, yeah.
Including a 6 a.m., 6:30 kickoff next Friday.
You're right.
So
let's get this out of the way then, man. Let's dive into this. So
I feel like
Rapids, of course, like you said already, they needed 3. They needed Salt Lake City to lose tonight. Happened. Just to be fun, they needed Seattle to also lose. Happened. And so everything, of course, as always, as per is tradition with this whole season, is the Rapids go into a big time game, riding at least one decent result, if not 2. And it's like, okay, everything's set up. Scoreboard's going your way. Here's a huge game. You have some momentum. And they just put out a big, wet fart noise of a game. Lose 4-1. And it was not that close. It was about 8 minutes of destruction, and started around minute 22, and by minute
the scoreline indicates that the game was a lot closer than it actually was.
Yes,
correct. And that's damn impressive considering that they dropped 4 goals on the Rapids.
It was. I struggle to say it was the worst game of the season for the Rapids, because Philly exists.
It was the worst winnable game of the season for the Rapids. How about that?
Yeah, because it was winnable, honestly. And it just there was just well, I mean, okay. So number one, I saw a few things on the timeline that it said it's time for a Yarby conversation. I disagree with that.
It's time for a Yarbrough conversation.
Whoa.
The fact is like,
do you think realistically
it's a complicated conversation
on any of those goals?
It's a complicated conversation because he has been hung out to dry all year,
all season.
But
midfield turnover.
You cannot deny that the man who made game-saving save after game-saving save last season has not kept up that rate of performance this year.
That's fair.
All of the advanced goalkeeping metrics say that he's regressed this year, even the ones that don't, that rely on, if that sort of ignore high XG chances that are as a result of like defensive errors and stuff. And you look at post shot expected goals, or whatever the big stat is, and he's in the bottom third of MLS goalkeepers. And he was in the top third last season in a lot of those metrics. And I feel like it's a bit of a misnomer to start with Yarbrough.
No,
because I don't think he's like the big.
My point was,
I agree.
Maybe it is time to have the conversation, but he wasn't the reason this team lost.
100%.
So that conversation is 4 weeks away when we're wrapping up the season. The conversation 100%. Tonight is that back line.
Yes.
And it was
completely
awful.
Agree.
It was.
This is probably God, it's that Philly game exists, right? Like, so like
the Philly game exists,
so bad,
the Vancouver game exists, the Seattle game exists. Those are the big ones off the top of my head where the defense really, really let them down. And this one is as bad as any of them.
I don't know how necessary it is for us to go through, every single goal tonight. But it's a lot of it's a lot of the same things we've seen in recent games. Like even against San Jose, he didn't score, but you saw Cade Cowell the entire game flew down the wings, cut inside, and nobody had any idea. Okay, who gets to step up to mark, right? The exact same thing happened with Edwards on the second goal tonight, when he just flew down the wing, in part because the Rapids had congested their entire midfield into like a giant clump in the center for the entirety of the game. And so giving the Galaxy acres of space on the wings. Edwards flies down the wings, cuts inside. Nobody has any idea who's up to step. Jack Price and Rosenberry both look completely lost.
To me, it looks like Jack Price tells Rosenberry, I have this. He kind of runs into his position, kind of sends Rosenberry off to the wing, which is probably the right move, right? If you have that layoff for a cross just wide open, you definitely want to keep a body over there. But to immediately get shook out of your shoes on the ground because he fakes you out so hard and then bury a goal after you sent off the guy who has been without a doubt the best one-on-one defender on that back line, no question. And maybe not tonight, wasn't great for anybody, but to immediately say, hey, no, go over there. And then to give up that, it was terrible. Awful. The communication was awful. Lawless wasn't stepping up to anybody. Wilson wasn't stepping up to anybody. It's
so sad because
Beta was terrible with the ball at his feet all night long. Horrible.
And should have closed down Araujo on the cross that he sent into Chicharito for the third goal. Beta was like 5-6 feet.
Yes.
Like had to close down that space a bit more. He left, too much space for the cross. And when you got a poacher as clinical as Chicharito, you just can't allow that to happen.
That back heel was
a sexy finish.
It was a great finish. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, assuming the season is over, like you said, it's less than 1% chance. It's time to play Gus. Do you want to see Drew Moore? I mean, what do you? I mean,
I want to see Drew Moore. I mean, I love Drew Moore.
No one wants to see Drew Moore.
Drew Moore's legend.
But like, what does that do for him?
We need to see Ralph. We need to see Ralph.
Play Gus. Okay, yeah, but let's get into defense because the midfield's.
Oh yeah, sure. Right, I mean, I'm not even. But that's the thing. Like,
what do you do? What's the point?
There's no point in playing Gus because it just makes a bad defense even worse.
Yeah,
and there's
no point in playing Markinick because
because he's not right.
Outside backs are your best thing you have going for you on that back line.
Yeah, and hasn't let's be honest, he hasn't been impressive in MLS play.
Yes,
he's had some occasional nice moments with Rapids too, I would say.
Yeah,
he's had a solid season there, but he's just not ready for MLS play. And that's fine. He's young. He's got time to improve.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really the issue is that there's, you got a guy like Abubakar Keita, right, who's been out with an injury all year.
Wish he was around just to have another body.
I mean, right. It's just
what do we got?
It has been one of those seasons, right? You have 3 players who, in their seasons with ACL injuries, you have your captain miss, 13 games, 12 games this year?
15?
An extraordinary number of games. Right. It just is a ridiculous number of games. You it's you at best, like we all said it during the offseason, that the Rapids at best stayed level, like with the moves that they made, while the rest of the West improved. And next year, every team in the league is going to get something around $9 million because of the Apple TV deal. So they're going to spend even more, right?
I mean, that's the nature of the game, right? Like you have to spend some money. And center back is without a doubt, I think, position 1 and also position 2. I think you need to invest millions into your defense. That is more than multiple. I think your total spend to reinforce your defense, whether that's a defensive midfielder and a center back, 2 center backs. I think it should be 2 center backs, but you need to spend some money because that defense could not stop a nosebleed. They do not step up to the ball. They don't know where to go. They don't know who's supposed to do what. It is time and time again against the best attacks in the West, and there's a bunch of good ones, and they face them all the time because they're in the West. And it's just some of the most dangerous offensive players in this league with the ball at their feet, and they just let them do what they want. They don't force the defensive issue over and over and over and over and over and over. Same thing tonight.
And I said this online after the second or third goal. I don't know. Tonight's honestly a bit of a blur.
There was a lot of tweeting. There was a lot of tweeting.
I mean, listen, there's a lot to talk about.
I know. But what was the point?
So I think Lawless Abubakar and Danny Wilson are each at best third choice center backs.
Yeah,
I think in the league, I think you can make an argument that Wilson paired or that either paired with the right guy could be a second choice. But like ideally,
we've seen them both be good in 3 center back lineups. I think that is where I think the 2 of them have played their best.
That's true. That's fair.
Lawless, especially in shorter space to cover, I think is great.
A bigger point I want to make, though, is I feel similarly about the 2 players who have spent most of the time, who've gotten most of the minutes on the wings this year. And that is Jonathan Lewis and Michael Barrios.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Lewis has had stretches where he's looked fantastic.
I think Lewis is closer to starter level for sure.
I agree.
Barrios was, and I mean, Barrios has had a very good MLS career. I think the numbers bear that out, but he is no longer at his peak and no longer. I mean, I thought he had some nice moments again tonight. He probably wants that cross back from Nicholson really bad.
Yeah, speaking of Nicholson, what a way to waste his best game as a Rapid since he returned. And I know a lot of his best moments came after the red card where the game. Oh yeah, by the way, in case you didn't watch the game and you're listening to this after the fact, the Galaxy did finish this game with 10 men, but it was after they had already scored 4.
Yeah.
And our boy Sammy Nicholson scored on his second shot on target of the year.
Do you know how many people tagged me in that? Do you know how many that I got?
How many?
I don't enough that it's funny to me that
a high
Nicholson
number.
Yes. Wasn't 0. It was just, man. So of course, I've been on this pod talking about how Sam has had no goal contributions. Yeah. And you brought up the lovely stat that made my no goal contributions even better, and that it was 1 shot on goal. Right? And then tonight he has that terrible shot. So that wasn't even on goal. But then he puts in, honestly, a really nice goal. He had
that great assist too.
Yes.
Or sorry, not an assist. A great key pass to
Mikey
Barrios.
Mikey
should have been an assist.
Yeah. Honestly, he had a really good finish to the game. He was drawing corners. He kept the listless offense going pretty much single-handedly towards the end.
Yeah.
Which is tough to say.
This is like really frustrating, right? It's like it's the first game that Sam finally looks like a little bit like the player that he was before he left.
He honestly looked really good. He's probably the best player on the field for the Rapids tonight.
Yes. I would also say that, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
It's brutal. Bad. It's bad. And like, that's what's making me so worried about this offseason is because the Rapids have a ton of business to do, not only with just the people on their current squad. They have like somewhere around, I believe, 6 players either on, I believe they have 7 or 8 players who have either options or contracts expiring this year. And that's more than just the players listed by the MLS Players Association, because guys like Marcanic wouldn't be eligible for free agency this year. So, and he's on a 1+4 deal. And so the Rapids have a bunch of stuff to do this season with their current squad. They have to make decisions about Barrios, Zardes, Betashore, and Marcanic. Priso, I think his deal might be coming up soon.
Let's see. I have the list right in front of me. So Barrios has an option.
Which list is this from,
Betashore has an option. This is MLSplayers.org.
Yeah, so this does not include the players who are not eligible for free agency.
Right. So Zardes, Zardes is out of contract.
Yes, and the Rapids would have to pay $750K to Columbus to keep him around.
Yep. Diego has an option. Drew Moore has an option. Clint Irwin is out of a contract. Beta has an option, and Barrios has an option.
And the same is true for Marcanic. I believe Mayaka's contract is up this year as well, and he also wouldn't be eligible as a free agent. And there's
also is Mayaka solving any problems for you right now?
No, I mean nobody's solving any problems. I'm just saying, like, they have
120 pounds.
I'm just saying they have the ton to worry about with the existing squad.
Yes,
and then you're potentially seeing this team needing to make moves, 2 moves in defense, whether or not that's like we haven't even talked about Estevez yet, right? Who's the
well, they're gonna just assume that that's already done. That's what I would say.
Okay,
I would assume that's $1 million you're spending right now on that.
All right. Either way, you're making 2.
I would be shocked if it wasn't, but
you're making 2 more moves in defense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You need at least 1, if not 2 wingers. Especially if Barrios, if you do not pick up the option on Barrios,
you're not getting rid of Lewis unless it's a trade for.
No, I know, but if you're not picking up Barrios's option,
you have to go get somebody.
I think you need to.
Well, unless you're going to say that Galvan is that guy.
I think Galvan could be that guy, but I still think you need options that are. You need Galvan, Lewis, another option.
Yaya would have been that option.
And
maybe Max finally makes that move.
Maybe. And then potentially a reinforced goalkeeper. Maybe if
Irwin, I would imagine Irwin
maybe goes off
solid goalkeeper. He probably tries to get a contract where he can play.
I don't know if he could play, but I wouldn't be surprised if he moved to his hometown and joined Charlotte for like a final contract. That would seem like something he could, because he went to high school there.
Yeah, maybe there is a situation where there's more minutes available, because it's not going to happen here, right? And you only have so much soccer left in you. I would not be surprised if he's itching to sign up to remain minuteless. You know what I mean? Like,
and listen. The other thing is, if you let Betashore, Moore walk, or Betashore, Moore, and Warner all like sort of reach, they're approaching that retirement age, right?
Yeah.
You still need to be able to replace those you need to go out and get depth pieces to replace those guys.
It's going to be a very different roster. There's almost no doubt.
This team has just so much business to do. They could potentially be bringing in 9, 8.
I think it's like 7 to 9 players. 6. I think it's like minimum 6 new guys will be here. Minimum. Yeah.
It has to be minimum 6.
Yeah. Is there any just off
that's
the
unthinkable, really? But that's like
names?
I do think we need to talk about how unthinkable that would have been when we were talking about the Rapids at the end of 2021, right?
Or even into March, April. It sounds crazy.
The idea that
it sounds
at the
crazy.
beginning of this year, the Rapids would potentially shed 7 to 9 players, or have to replace that level of contributions next season during the off season. The fact that we're even at this stage to begin with just shows how off track this season has been. And yes, I know injuries. We all know the injuries that have kept them from being as competitive as they were last year. We all know that certain players have regressed, but the fact that it happened, the fact that it all culminated into this situation.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that last year it was anytime you needed that result, it was a hard fought and earned result, right? Like hard fought, scrappy team getting points when they needed it, right? In this improbable run from the playoff pack to the 1 seed, right? Like didn't see it coming. It did. Great season, tough playoff out, whatever. But it was like a scrappy, hard fighting team. This year, minus a few pieces, right? And in some of those pieces, some improvements, some not. It's the exact opposite. It is like big game, time to strap it up, time to strap on the boots, man. Let's go to work.
Honestly, though, and I hate to push back on you here,
sure,
but like, what's the improvement?
I would say Zardes over Baji. That's an improvement.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yeah, down the line, it's all, I'd say most of them. Acosta was not the replacement for Acosta everyone wanted, but I think Felipe did a pretty decent Kellen Acosta impersonation here at the end. Of course, too late, right? But
yeah,
you still have Jack. You still have Jack Price. You still have Diego Rubio, right? You still have Danny Wilson. You still have Yarbrough. You still have Keegan. You still have these guys who are core key pieces to this team, who were core key pieces last year. And somehow that fight and resolve, anytime this team has its back against the wall, is not there.
Yeah.
Outside of LAFC at home and Seattle at home, what are the signature wins for this club this year? What are the signature
one
results?
Step farther and say that Frazier has an issue with earning signature wins over the course of his entire career with the Rapids to date.
I mean, look at the playoff loss to 10-man Portland.
Look at the Rocky Mountain Cup performances in the last 2 seasons, right? Even in 2020 when they won the Rocky Mountain Cup. But if you look at only because that MLS's back game didn't count, which, we all knew going in, but, had that game counted, they would have lost the Rocky Mountain Cup that year. There's an asterisk on that too, right? So Rocky Mountain Cup games, playoff games, Champions League games, US Open Cup games. Frazier has not been able to win games or sort of set a squad up to win games when the season or the tournament or a trophy or silverware is on the line. When push comes to shove under Frazier's management, we just haven't seen those wins. And now the wins against San Jose and Vancouver steps in the right direction, right? In terms of the season, the San Jose win wasn't a great performance, but it was still
but you're always
still a win, right? And their backs where it gets a
performance in a win.
But they were favored for those games, right?
Yes.
I struggle to think of the time. I struggle to think of the last time the Rapids won sort of a must-win game against a team that was, expected to either win or hold the draw, and it just hasn't happened under Frazier. And I think to answer that guy's question in the chat.
Shout out that guy.
Shout out that guy. I don't think Frazier's seat is
not hot.
It's hot to start next season.
It's literally not hot. It's
I think
cold.
he's
comfortable. He's fine. There's nothing. Yeah.
I think the bigger concern is the Rapids transfer strategy and Porksmith.
Let's hold on that. Let's hold on that. Sure. Let's hold on that. Sure. Let's hold on that. Last thing for this game. I mean, I don't know if I expected a win, right? I really hoped for a win, right? I really thought this is the best 11 this team can put out there. Minus, I would have definitely started Lucas over Beta. I'm not really sure what happened there. I think maybe he was trying to save a yellow suspension or something.
Lucas wasn't
for that
on
home game.
Lucas
he wasn't
on
watch.
No,
Oh.
It was just a Costa,
because it fell
Bubakar,
off
and Rubio.
after 2 games, right? Yeah. I don't know. Then I have no idea what it was, but I thought this was a pretty good 11.
Estevez did play 180 minutes this week. It could have literally just been. It could have just been fitness. So
could have been. I think Nicholson over Barrios was a questionable start. Although Nicholson did have his best game, I still don't think that was like a winning move. But
And also tactically, like the plan to just like clump everybody together in the center and just try to brute force things through the middle just was never going to work.
But you saw Price Felipe and you're like, sick. Let's go. Like that's sick. That's like,
and then
that
Price
is two
delivered
very
his
good,
worst game of the year.
Yeah, that's like two very good midfielders. Let's go. Rubio needs 3 goals, right? Right, to be the all-time
single season, and he can beat
the
single season goal contribution record with
correct
either a goal
assist
or assist.
So he'll probably get that. And it just was like everything was set up. They have 2 wins. They have a team that they own. They own the Galaxy. Like they own the Galaxy. And everything was set up, and I just don't understand how every game, I have said that. I sound like a broken record. Is that like the 8th time I've said something like this on this podcast this season? Where it's like everything was set up for this team and they couldn't deliver when it needed to.
Just so you guys in the chat know who are debating about Frazier, Frazier is still the manager with the highest points per game haul in Colorado history.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. I mean, I think if they have a season just like this one next year, I mean, maybe
you talk about it if you're bringing in a no doubt improvement, right?
Yeah, right. Like,
if it's like a for sure, like a name is like, yeah, I'll coach the Rapids. That's the only chance. If they have a completely 10th place, 11th place season next year, and someone is like, yo, I'll take that on. That's it. That's the only way. It is at least 2-3 years of Frazier right now. I'm not even thinking about it otherwise.
Yeah.
Not because I don't think they can do. I mean, I think there's plenty to talk about with Frazier. And like you said, the failure to get big results is huge, but they're very committed to Frazier. I mean, Frazier is not going anywhere. So kind of having that conversation isn't necessarily productive because
I agree.
Whatever answer you come up with doesn't really matter because he's not going anywhere at the end of the day.
We've all been asking that, for the club to open the purse strings to give him some help. And he hasn't gotten that help.
Everybody in the West seems to have gotten someone dope or 2 or 3. If you're an LA team, it's someone like on a European level. Awesome.
Can we talk about Ricky Puig?
Dude.
Because
let's do it.
I mean,
he's so
like,
sick.
honestly, like that man, everything he touches turns to gold in the midfield.
So good at soccer. It is annoying. I hate it.
And he was involved, and I want to say he was heavily involved in the buildup of at least 2 of LA's goals tonight. I don't think he got an assist or a goal, but he was involved in like the setup to them.
Drew some really advantageous free kick spots too for them on some fouls. He's great. And that's another move where it's like probably not the best business decision from Galaxy, right? Like Barcelona can just decide to buy him back. Yeah. If they don't decide to buy him back, they get 50% of profits on any future sales. Not great business.
Well, listen, I'd rather have Moneyball than a team that only signs players if agents come to them and be like, "Hey, you should sign me,"
Correct.
Which is literally the Galaxy's.
Bad, man. I don't think Moneyball is bad.
I know.
In a league like the MLS, it's the way to go. Like, look at Philly. Yeah. Philly is Moneyball.
Philly is the model that the Rapids want to.
Yes, and they are the best team in soccer, and it isn't, and it's like very clear.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. So let's kind of get into. We can have a board conversation if you want on the other side.
I mean, I'll have whatever conversation you want to have tonight because there's a lot to talk about.
If you guys have any questions or thoughts on what is essentially the end of the season, even if we have a couple games left, we can get into. Go ahead and drop them in there while I talk about the homies at Evoca TV. But we'll get into some things, kind of looking forward, looking ahead, and we'll get into that on the other side. But first, of course, Evoca TV. They're the new GOAT in Colorado sports. That is the greatest of all television. Evoca delivers amped up sports coverage for Colorado fans featuring Altitude Sports, AT&T Sportsnet, and the NFL Network. Get the most regional content for the lowest price for sports in Colorado, all in crystal clear HD while using less bandwidth, and enjoy over 60 entertainment channels, including news, movies, and more. Turn your home into the ultimate game viewing zone. You can even stream your teams from your phone, laptop, or tablet when you're on the go. You can also add on a discounted Sling TV bundle to get ESPN and more. Avaca is only $25 a month plus a $5 receiver fee. Right now, Colorado sports fans get $10 off per month for your first 3 months. To score this deal, go to evoca.tv/Colorado10. That is EVOCA.tv/Colorado10. No contracts, no catches. Evoca TV is made for champions of the remote. Shout out to the homies at Evoca TV. Also, shout out to the homies at Game Time. We love Game Time. If you plan on catching this Dallas game, but you don't have a ticket, please use the link in the show description. Game Time has the best prices on second-hand tickets on the secondary ticket market, up to 110% price match, which means if you find a comparable ticket for cheaper than Game Time has it, you will get 110% off of that price off your next order of tickets through Game Time. They are a great partner. We're stoked to have them. Again, if you're looking for tickets, concerts, any event in town, go to the link in our show description or any of the other past DNVR Rapid show. Get in there, get tickets, go that way. Please hook it up with the homies at Game Time. Lastly, the DNVR bar is open. Shout out, Kevin was there tonight with Dev, Wanners, Julio. It was not the best game to watch together, but we were in the DNVR bar watching soccer together, and that was tight because we're open. And we had it up on the 4 TVs that make one TV sound on in the bar. It was a really fun time, and I'm glad those guys made it out. So shout out to them. Hopefully, well, we're not going to have more than one game left of that, but we have at least one game left of that. And then next season, we'll be doing that a lot. So definitely come on down the DNVR bar, check it out. We'll be doing NFL all day tomorrow, including the Broncos. Should be a pretty good time. And guess what? We're only like 10 days from Nuggets training camp. Avalanche started preseason stuff yesterday. Like, we are about to just have so much going on there, including the World Cup, where we will have watch-alongs for the U.S. games and post-game shows. It's going to be super fun. So tons of soccer stuff, tons of just sports stuff. So check us out over at DNVR.
But will you be open at 6:30 a.m.
Why do we have
next
to be open at
Friday
6:30?
when
Oh,
Sammy
no.
Vines
No.
Sammy Vines plays against
No.
either
But we will be
Japan?
open at noon for all the World Cup U.S. games.
That's fair.
Because they all start at noon Mountain Time. That is freaking awesome. That is like perfect World Cup time. So yeah. All right. Let's
talk about this kid question from B-Ray
Yeah.
in the comments, because I think it's a really good one. Is
Go
like,
for it.
do you start Priso and Max? And if
Max,
you're asking
yes.
me if I'm coach,
Mhm.
yes. But as our good friend Brendan Plone transcribed from today's presser, Frazier believes that as long as there is a mathematical chance, they are going to go for it.
I do respect that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the guy. I mean, I'm willing to argue that a little bit, but
okay. But I guess here's my other thing. What is throwing Priso into 90 minutes of action against Dallas and Austin get you? Really? Like, what does it get him? What does it get the Rapids? Like, I mean, honestly,
good question,
really,
because
like,
I don't.
It is not going to make or break his development.
I personally would like more film of Priso, because
Sure.
I still haven't really figured, it's so hard to figure out what he could be for this team if we don't see him play. Now,
don't get me wrong.
I'd imagine that the reason why they've kept him out this week is because, for this week's games, the Wednesday and tonight, I mean, the man got red carded for Rapids 2 for 2 kind of, mediocre yellow cards last weekend. And I'm sure that sort of has played a role in the team's decision to limit his minutes. But I just haven't seen that much negative play from him when he's played with the
Sure.
first team this year.
Sure.
And that's what I keep falling back on with Priso, is that I struggle to think of an appearance where he didn't at least put in a solid shift.
Sure.
And I know they play different positions, but he's certainly proved more of a proved to offer more to the team than Sam Nicholson had before tonight.
Yeah.
And I know that, the wings are a dearth right now, and there's not really any better options there. But still, I feel like it sends a bad message to youngsters, and Frazier has kind of developed a little bit of a reputation like this year for being unwilling to grant.
Max has played a pretty good amount.
It's true.
Yeah, I was getting into games there for a lot towards the end there. The problem is like
just getting garbage time minutes.
That's fair.
Though.
I want to address this though. We went out to get Priso for him to play 2 to 3 games. We did not go out to get Priso for him to play 2 or 3 games. We also didn't go out to get Priso to sustain any bit of play this season. There was no trading for Ralph Priso was not about him contributing to the 2022 Rapids in any way, shape, or form. That was not the reason to trade for him. You trade for a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old.
Oh God.
Whatever he is.
I'm sorry.
You don't trade. No, that's fine. But you don't trade for a kid who barely played in Toronto because, he's going to come save this season. You trade for him because you have a piece that is cost controlled for a long stretch of time and you can develop slowly.
He just turned 20.
He just turned 20. They did not trade him just to play him 2 to 3 games. They played him because they went and got him because he's a long-term piece. Same thing with Max. They didn't get Max to come in. I mean, it would have been nice if he contributed faster, definitely. But you got him because he's a long-term piece and he's a developmental piece and he can turn into a piece down the road. And you do need pieces like that in the MLS. Like you can't just, you have to develop while also supplementing veteran play. And the problem with the veteran play is it regressed or just wasn't as effective as it could have been.
Yeah.
Or there were injuries.
Listen, man, like there's just so much to it feels overwhelming to try to dissect all the issues this season because it feels like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Yes. That's also the other problem is if you ran this season 100 times, is this the 5th worst, 4th worst? It's close.
Yeah, I mean, this is top percentile of the worst, performance or the worst outcomes. Like if you simulated this season a bunch of times, and it's why even the talking heads at MLSsoccer.com, right? They all gave the Rapids a chance this year. I think only 1 or 2 of the MLSsoccer.com pundits didn't predict this team to go to the playoffs. And that was a huge change from last year where everybody picked them in the picked them behind 10th place.
Yeah.
So listen, like this team it's simultaneously there are a lot of problems that are worse than I feel like people are willing to acknowledge, but there are a lot of things that are better than people are willing to acknowledge. Like they're going to get Price and Gavon back for full seasons, hopefully next year. That alone would be huge. But my big worry is that this team is not going to keep pace even if they bring in players during the offseason. I think there's a strong possibility this team goes into 2023 with a roster that's of similar quality to the roster that started this year, like back when we thought we would have Galvan and Price all year. That's my big worry, is that they just tread water for another window.
Honestly, man, it might be a little worse. What if Zardes doesn't resign? What if all the guys who have options say, please don't pick up that option? Right? What if, what if Galvan isn't, what if he's 15% less physically as the max? What if he doesn't?
I am less worried about Galvan because
I'm just saying there's like a lot of ways.
He looked great. And like he had previously injured this ACL when he was with Cologne, the same ACL. And supposedly the discussion or like the talking points in Argentina where the surgery didn't go super great. So
That's fun. Denver has had that before when Gallinari had ACL surgery and then had to have it again 6 months later because they realized they didn't do the right job.
And Courtney Ford too,
Yep.
who had I think had to have multiple surgeries
Yep.
to fix an issue in his knee.
Yeah.
But
that's a small part of it. My is if you don't replace these correctly, or just kind of say that, because here's the other thing that would be really easy to do, and because we just made this point of this team is in possibly the worst or fifth worst or sixth worst or whatever outcome if you replayed the season 100 times, it's easy to bank on that and be like, you're right. If we replay this and we get the 94th best time, we're in the third seed or second seed right now. And this team with all these vets and all this chemistry.
So that's where I want to push back, though. Is
no,
I
you're
feel
right.
That
was a little high. That was a little high.
Yeah, no, but
like, I'm saying that like there's a way to say that it all went wrong. If we run it back, it won't all go wrong.
Sure. Yeah,
right. It's easy to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with it, but I also don't not agree with it because it probably wouldn't all go wrong.
Sure.
Again.
Yeah. I had this team at 5th in the West.
And I think that was fair
at the start of the season. And I think
that
might have been a little bit optimistic in hindsight. I think at the time I was really overrating Max, and I was also expecting Abubakar Keita.
I said he'd have like 12 goal contributions, dude.
I was also expecting Abubakar Keita to be around when I wrote that, and I also was expecting Gavan to be around when I wrote that.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God. But listen, like, yeah, B-Ray makes a really good point in the chat. If they get 4 road wins, the Rapids are 5th, and there are 4 road wins. You look back on that schedule that they could have had.
Utah,
I'm thinking of
Houston,
KC,
Vancouver,
and Vancouver. Those 4 right there: Houston, Vancouver, Utah, and KC. All 4 of those road games. Oh yeah, DC. There's 5, and they're right there. Like they're in 5th if they do that.
Minnesota.
Yeah. A lot of games went the wrong way this year, which is a promising, like the fact that the games they got really unlucky in a lot of games this year. Like that's like Frazier set the team out for some really good soccer in some road games this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the team just didn't couldn't convert chances.
Nope.
Couldn't finish.
Nope.
And gave up soft goals.
Yep. Sorry, that's not analysis.
No, it's no. It's I mean,
like
it's
I'm just
point.
Yep, because you're right.
It's where we've fallen this season.
The road is by far the struggle that baffles me, man. It's like you can. It's just that it's. I don't understand.
B-Ray's right in the comments. You need a solid defense to pick up wins on the road, because the way you pick up wins on the road is you limit the amount of times your opponents can. But you really need to just limit the amount of opportunities your opponent has to begin with, which is why at the start of the season we saw Frazier send out a little bit more defensive lineups when he went on the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as the season got towards the end, he got a little bit more desperate, started throwing some more people in the attack and stuff. But the team just didn't repay Frazier. And listen, we haven't. This is kind of becoming a season postmortem, and
because the season's over.
It is. But I feel like
we have 2 weeks before this team plays again.
I feel like
I know that's okay. We're gonna throw some stuff at the wall. That's kind of the point of this pod right now. Is this is fresh, and this is like, okay, this and this. So to kind of transition to that talk, which I think is fair. We'll wrap up another 5-10 minutes of that and call it a night. That guy says, let's just say that all the options don't get picked up and Zardes leaves. So that means you have no. You also have no Barrios.
You replace Betashore. You need to replace.
Beta's gone. Moore's gone. So you need to pick up another center back. Like you know what I mean? That's now 2-3 center backs you need. If you don't figure out a way to bring Felipe Gutierrez, Although, I mean, there's no option to buy, but I do assume there's
No
some
public
sort
option. There could be, but they
Right.
don't always tell us these things.
That's the dumbest thing about MLS. Like, how do you not know that like there's a buy
Well,
clause?
they know, but they just
No, but how do we not
they're
know? What?
they
How do
aren't
we
interested
not
in
know?
telling us.
It's insane. But like, right? So there's that. There's Lucas. I mean, this team would be scrounging. I mean, not necessarily scrounging. You'd still have Price. You'd still have Rubio. No, because he has an option too. So you might not. Okay, so he would be gone too, right? You would have Jonathan Lewis, Sam Nicholson.
There's no way they don't option Rubio.
No. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, that was to answer his question.
Sure.
Right. But so you'd have Jonathan Lewis, Sam Nicholson, Jack Price, Priso, Max, Keegan, Wallace,
all the Rapids
Wilson,
2 guys.
everybody
Rapids
Rapids
2.
But yeah, I mean, you're missing a lot.
Acosta, I think, has another guaranteed year left.
Mm-hmm. Although I am excited to see Acosta in the role that he was needed in.
Yeah.
Which is the 60-minute midfielder to play some defense and to be a dog with a lead and like get in people's grill and play tough D instead of being the organizer and orchestrator of an entire team on the field, which is not his role. It's not what his strength is.
Between Frazier and Price's absences, what do you think bears more responsibility on the team conceding early and late goals? Because I feel like it could equally be like a coaching issue, and it could also be just it's literally just Price in your mind.
Price.
Like, do you think if they have
it's Price?
All right,
it's Price. Because the second and Dwayne Brown, downtown Dwayne Brown, who is not with us tonight, I wish he was.
He's still alive, everyone. Just so you know.
Oh yeah. Dwayne's fine. He's just not here with us in this show. It's funny how English works like that. He had a fantastic point last week where he was saying that he noticed it within like 30 seconds because Jack Price was immediately coming out and pointing people that way.
The same thing happened with Rapids 2's defense this year when Michael Edwards went out for a long time with injury, because he was being that guy for Rapids 2 for most of the year, where he was just pointing all these 16-year-olds where they needed to be. And
the only reason I would think there's some coaching things there is the Nashville game, Price was still healthy. And that was what kicked off the weird the games are over early stretch. And when things go bad, they get terrible. And he was here. That's my only thing. Yeah. But you are right that it's like you can point to key players like Edwards, like Price. And you're right there, where it's like when your orchestrator and your communicator and the accountability, the person who keeps that accountability for everyone around them isn't there, this is what you get. You get dumb mistakes. You get people not doing what they're supposed to do. It's just tough.
B-Ray, I am pretty sure Price was on the pitch when Yarbrough gave up that really soft goal against Houston.
He was. Yep.
That's the only one I can really think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure it could have happened.
But in that run, he played in every single one of those games where they gave up a goal after the 43rd minute for 4 straight games in June and July. True. He was in all of those games. He was there.
So are we arguing ourselves, out of our position that Price is sort of
No, I think it matters because he had the hamstring early, missed time, had the calf injury, missed time, and then had a freaking busted rib and collapsed lung and missed a bunch of time.
Yeah.
And that matters because communication is improved through practice, right? Like all those little accountabilities and all those little moments are all filed away. Like these guys, I mean, they're all professional soccer players, whether or not they've had their best seasons, whether or not this team has been good. They understand that like every time you have a moment, it gets filed away and you learn, and it's another data point for how to continue playing soccer, right? But if Jack isn't out there for 15 games or 13 games, whatever we said it was, you miss out all those little data points where it's like, hey, you should have done this, you should have done this, you should have done this, because Acosta doesn't see this game the same way. Felipe just came in. He doesn't know for sure until probably now or, a couple weeks ago at the earliest where these people are supposed to be. You definitely aren't going to rely on Max or Prizo to do that. You're just not. Warner doesn't play enough for that to be a factor. And it's just, I do think that it comes to, I think if Price is healthy, even give him the calf injury or even give him just the hamstring injury or just the chest injury, although that is late in the season, so maybe not. But you take away 2 of those 3 sustained absences for Jack Price, this team is comfortably in the playoffs.
I don't know about comfortably,
yeah, you're
but
right.
I do.
But 7th or
think,
6th, right?
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
They're on the other side of
yeah,
the line.
100%.
That's
100%.
what I mean.
No. I'm right there with you.
That's
it
how it
really
goes.
it really took a series, and I mean a series of unfortunate events for this team to finish where they are right now. But I don't want that to read as excuses for what I would describe as 2, at best, mediocre transfer windows.
Yeah, and Trusty just bailing on the team for about a month. That sucked.
Yeah, that 1 month stretch before he left was
completely underperforming and then getting traded. I mean, they basically got
But even though K may have been we can argue about whether or not K was underperforming or not, but when he left, they didn't adequately replace his contract, what he was contributing.
I mean, what do you have? 3 goals, 3 assists?
That was pretty good.
3 or 4. Yeah. I mean, Felipe only has 2 goals, or 2 assists. Max has 1, so that's 3. No goals. So yeah, you're right.
So I really do mean it did take a series of unfortunate events, but I also, like I said, I don't want that to excuse 2 very bad or 2 mediocre transfer windows. And I think that's what's so frustrating about this team is that the pieces were the core pieces are there.
Yeah, but you did need to improve those other spots.
But they needed to keep pace with the rest of the league, and they just didn't. Even if you accepted that this team, even if you had everybody healthy all year, this team wasn't going to repeat at the top of the West. No one was even expecting that the Rapids would be in the conversation for the top spot in the West this year. And that the reason why nobody expected that is because the team didn't play the offseason like they were a team in the upper echelon of MLS when they could have done that, right?
Yeah, you're right.
They could have kept.
You nailed it.
They could have. They had a huge opportunity to reinvest the money that they got from Vines, Bassett, and eventually Trusty into making this a perennial title contending squad.
If they just
everybody knew going into this season that they weren't going to reach that standard again. And the best case scenario that most of us had for the Rapids this year was, 4th, 5th, in that range. Maybe there's a few people I think who might have predicted them at 3rd, but nobody had them in the 1-2 conversation. And you look at the West right now, there's no way, even if they had Price and Galvan healthy all year, that they would have competed with, what Driussi and
no chance.
And what LAFC have done this year.
No chance. They do not have a roster on that level.
They're just not in that tier. And last
My
year,
thing is
they did get a little lucky. They got a little lucky last year. KC and Seattle falling off at the end of the year. And sometimes you do need a little luck. But they just didn't build on the team.
My thing is,
to the extent that they should have.
And you've nailed this time and time again. So sorry guys if we're bringing it up again, but the summer window, you traded away K for someone who is not in the plans to contribute this year. Never was. Literally was a target for a developmental piece. It's the only way to look at Prizo. Period. End of story. That's it. You just hold on to K. And granted, they got a lot of money. They got a draft pick. They got yada yada yada. I mean, they got
pick.
a.
Who cares?
You know what I'm saying, though.
No, yeah.
Hey, I mean, some draft picks are doing very well in the MLS this year. Like, you can find the right guys if you can find the right guys. That being said, they got a ton for him, so I get it. But if you just say, if that's not even on the table, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, if K is just, nope, you're here, and they go and get that winger to fill the right side, or they go and get a center back to reinforce the back line, how different is our attitude about this team right now? Very
Exceptionally different.
It's kind of mind-blowing, really.
One guy to, like, even not even talking about the wingers, right? Because the Rapids have been scoring okay this year.
I mean, they have 23 games with 2 goals or less, and 18 of those have 1 goal or less, or something.
But
17 with 1 or less.
Look at what RSL is doing with much fewer goals this year. Like we said earlier, defense wins championships, right? Did we say that on this? Somebody, yeah.
But I mean, come on, you need to score more than 2 goals.
That's true. I mean, but
in more than a third of your games.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like,
the
MLS is a high-scoring league, and they are a very low-scoring team in that league.
That's fair. That's fair.
And they have, and you said it, 1-0 win.
That's true.
1.
But listen,
so if you're not going to score, you have to defend. If you
RSL's in a playoff spot with 5 fewer goals, and the reason why they're in a playoff spot with 5 fewer goals is because they've conceded 11 fewer than the Rapids this year. And you think back to all those games where Fraser was like, we did enough to win, but defensive errors cost us, which was pretty much the entire sort of period after the summer international break. Like late July, early August. You think about all those games where Fraser was like, soft goal, we're just conceding soft goals, and that's why we're not winning games. And I think if they would have gotten one guy to really
cement that back,
to basically threaten Abubakar and Wilson's jobs, like you
not
need
threaten,
take one
and start them all the time.
You need a guy to come in and basically be a reason to play better, like be a reason for the rest of the defense to play better.
Can I just say about this?
Yeah.
RSL has 5 less goals thing. If the Rapids had their normal goal production in the 2-game stretch where they exploded against Red Bull in Minnesota, they would have 5 goals less, 6 goals less. They would be at RSL or worse. Like, they exploded for 2 games and then went back to doing what they do. So I'm not going to hold this 5-goal lead over RSL in too high esteem, because the Rapids very much showed us who they are as a goal scoring.
But my point is that you can be a low scoring team and succeed in MLS.
You can be a 7th seed, a 6th seed.
Yeah. And listen, like, it's all about getting to the playoffs, right? Because as long as you can dance, you can dance as long as you can.
Sure. And but that also takes being a good road team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
like,
God, you want to talk about things that went wrong.
Everything
this year,
plays out right. Thing. Let's say we're talking to Winners Lounge right now, right? Let's say we're talking to Winners Lounge. Let's just say same results hold for everyone else. Rapids win, get their 15 in 5, and do you know what that first round playoff game would be? In Austin against a rested Austin team who isn't going to play anyone on decision day because their 2 seed is going to be locked in. And then you're just going to stay in Austin for a week on the road, because that's right where you're going to go if you win that last game. And then Austin beats the absolute piss out of them 5-0, 5-1. It's going to be a disaster.
And I said this at the start of the season, is that making the playoffs wasn't even the bar I had for the team this year. My bar for this team was winning a playoff game.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what it needed to be after last year.
Yeah.
That was the standard that we need to hold Frazier, and really, and not just Frazier. It's the standard we need to hold the entire Rapids organization to,
Mhm.
because for all the talk about being a perennial playoff team, and the Rapids going into this season being 2 consecutive playoff appearances, good improvement over what it was like before. Like, none of us want to go back to the Hudson era. 2018 and 2019 were
no,
worse.
don't, please no.
Nobody wants to go back to that era of the Rapids.
Want to go back to that
right?
era of the Rapids. No.
At least under Frazier, they have a fighting chance, right? But my
Yeah,
bar
they
this
do,
year
and that's
for
the
the
annoying
team
part of
was
this whole
that.
day.
But my bar for the team this year was winning a playoff game, and that's because at a certain point, the appearances themselves are meaningless if the team is functionally dead on arrival when they reach the postseason, which they have
They
been.
needed a 4 seed or higher to have a chance this year of a playoff win. There was and that was never going to happen because they just blow points all the time. You know what's funny, and we can kind of wrap it up here, because you were on a show, I want to say April-ish.
Yeah.
April-ish.
I think I said that exact same thing then too, that my standard this year was a playoff win.
You did say that, but that's not the thing that I remember you saying. I remember me saying all these points count the same. This was a winnable game.
I remember this conversation it was yesterday.
I said this, blowing these points, turning these 3 points into 1. It might have been the Salt Lake game, but that doesn't sound right.
I think it was the Houston game.
You're right. No, because I was at my cousin's wedding. I missed that. So
Charlotte.
You're right. Charlotte. Yep. Charlotte draw. It was the Charlotte draw. Correct. And I said
San Jose loss could have been another one too.
No, it was the Charlotte draw, because I remember specifically, I was like, this should have been 3 points, and it's 1. And those 2 points, those 2 missing points are the same 2 missing points, whether this game is in April or this game is in September. And it's not like, you obviously know your stuff, so I'm not trying to, that's not the point of this, but you said something along the lines of, yeah, okay, but those, when the playoffs come around, and I was like, no, like, my point then was like, you cannot keep dropping these easy points. And I think all the way into maybe almost even into June, maybe that's a little too far, roll that back, maybe May, it was like, okay, but when they get to the playoffs, right? Like, you said it, I said it, Yaya said it, Matt Pollard said it, the C38 homies said it, Brendan Plone was saying it, and we all said it. Everybody in Rapids media was like, yeah, okay, well, when they get to the playoffs. And I think all of us just took that. I don't know if all of us, but certainly the Rapids seem to have taken that for granted. That certainly feels like their attitude from day one was, well, when we get to the playoffs, we'll have it figured out by the time we're in the playoffs. And this is what happens. You mess around, you find out.
Yeah. You said it. I mean, listen, you're spot on, man. I mistakenly sort of thought, well, one, at the time, we weren't expecting Jack Price to miss 15
of course.
games.
No,
right.
no,
I know. And like, but yeah, you're right. Like, and I think I remember like really coming to agreement with you on that at the time. And no, I really do, because at least maybe not on the show, but afterwards,
sure.
like, I was like, that Mitch guy, he knows what he's talking about, right?
Hey,
and yeah, those, we're still looking back at those games as a reason. We did it literally on the show, I want to say 15 minutes ago, where we're like, let's pick out 4 road wins, right, that they could have gotten that would have put them in a better position now. And really, that's all they needed, which is, it's just crazy how so much went wrong for the Rapids this year, but so much in the table, on the standings, like the teams around them played so poorly across so many stretches this season that
every
kept the
time
Rapids fighting chances alive.
For the Rapids,
yes, every time the Rapids needed results from other teams, they nearly got them every single time. Like even tonight, where the only scenario heading into tonight was that the Rapids would be eliminated if they lost, and if RSL won, and if Portland gets points on Sunday. And RSL lost. They took an early lead against FC Cincinnati, and FC Cincinnati leveled it, got a penalty, then had that penalty taken away, then missed a penalty, and then still
Everything went
managed to
right,
win.
man. You're right. Everything went right.
Everything on the table. Like, so while everything went wrong, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong as far as like the squad, injuries,
Regression.
signings, player regression. Everything went wrong on that front. And still they were in it with a fighting chance just because of how competitive the West was this year and how many other teams also went on just like improbable winless stretches. I mean, Seattle is going to miss is probably going to miss the playoffs for the first time in 14 years.
Oof.
And the
You know
Rapids
what?
aren't gonna
I
and the
am
Rapids aren't
glad
gonna
that
be
we're
there.
not doing the postmortem on a season where we're missing the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. That is a tough show.
They have
to
never
do.
missed the playoffs since joining the league in 2009. So that might be 13 years.
That is a tougher show to do than we had to do, but we did it. We got through it. Joseph, thank you so much for coming on. For what was surely the most difficult post-game show we had to do this year. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and plug your stuff.
Hey guys, you know me by now if you're listening to this. You can follow me at JSPSAM on Twitter. Tomorrow, I will be live tweeting through the Rapids 2 season finale. And then after that game, you'll see a post-mortem for me on that team season. So if you didn't pay attention to Rapids 2 at all this year and you want to know sort of what went down, why they missed the playoffs, that interests you at all.
They also couldn't score. They just
they
talk about defensive struggles and they couldn't score. It's like the worst version of what the senior team was dealing with. Good luck. Anyways,
and you want to talk about injuries, Rapids 2 had it way worse this season. Anyways, so if that like sort of, aspect of the Rapids interests you at all, you can see that from me coming soon. I'll also have a full season post-mortem on the senior team once, the Rapids officially get out of the playoffs. Maybe it comes in the off season. And hey, listen, in a few weeks, we're going to have some exciting, or I guess in a month or so, we're going to have some more exciting times with the off-season drafts, expansion discussions, protected lists,
winter windows,
re-entry drafts. What is that? I'll explain it to you. Listen, if that sort of off-season inner workings of MLS teams like roster building and stuff interests you at all, I talk about that pretty much nonstop.
We're gonna have some crazy drafts that Joseph will probably be on, some weird Yaya invented games for us to play, dealing with all that stuff.
But yeah, as always, though, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Mitch. And honestly, across the full season, every time I've been on the show, it's so much fun to talk with you and Yaya, or with Brendan, or with I think I was with Jared on a pod once that was really good. And listen, I'm just really happy that you guys in the chat and you guys, in the comments on YouTube have been listening all this time, and it's made this season a little bit more bearable. I mean that honestly and seriously. Like I think like both the conversations with Mitch and with you guys in the chat, it's been really great this year, and I can't wait for a season where we have a lot of positive things to talk about.
It will be tight,
and
it will make all this worth it for sure. Not worth it, that it's not, but you know what I mean. Like it's gonna like all these like 4 people in the comments for a whole show after a losers lounge at midnight, 12:30 Mountain Time is gonna feel great if they're hoisting a cup in the next few years, which Yaya said 3 years cup. So we'll see.
I'm knocking on Yaya's door if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know. We know where he lives. Maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe I do. Yaya. All right. Drop him in the chat if you haven't already. Go to like and subscribe to DNVR Sports on YouTube. 5-star reviews anywhere you listen to this podcast that isn't on YouTube. Thumbs up always, please. Get to the bar and hang out with me during Broncos games or Nuggets games or Avs games or this last Piz game, any of those things. And more important than all of that, we say up
Up the Pids.
the Pids.